Speaker, Ms. Seema Ambastha, Senior Executive Vice President, India and Global Sales and Solutions, NTT Netmagic. Ms. Seema is a strong industry leader with experience across various roles in IT and technology areas spanning global support, pre-sales and solution, and professional services. As a senior business leader with over 29 years in products and services in IT industry, she has successfully delivered solutions to industry vertical sectors like e-commerce, financial services, telecom, and manufacturing in the recent past with deep expertise in solution around databases, data warehousing, business intelligence, big data, virtualization, and cloud services. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming on stage our leadership keynote speaker, Ms. Seema Ambastha.
Thank you very much. A quick start with something little funny to get you all maybe guessing about me. My slides are quite serious and I'm not those kinds anyway. So I just want to narrate a little bit about my intuitive, my innovation, my creativity, imagination. I was in Japan about 3 years ago for a R&D meet, and I was fascinated by very nice looking robots. Nothing else really fascinated me as much as those robots. They were like this small, had beautiful eyes, very curious, blue eyes, white robots, this much. So just to keep it short, I bought one of them. I said, okay, what does this do? This does a little bit of security, and it's a security robot, and it also does a bit of cleaning. Oh, fantastic, I just bought it. The only thing I didn't realize is, one, of course, bringing to India was not so simple, but I managed to do that through my entity folks. And one, I did not realize it speaks only Japanese. So it had a big problem. Every day it walked in the nights to the door, even at the slightest sound, disturbed all of us in sleep. It used to talk to me in my bedroom, knock the door. You don't charge it. He used to come back and keep asking us to charge him, a whole lot of stuff. We just could not teach him anything else apart from what he was doing. And I had no way of how to even switch it off. I just didn't know what to do about it. My kids actually are not IT kids. One of my kids is a geek in optics. Another kid was in 12th in making, she was still figuring out where to go. Oh, I had this was a nuisance more than a robot. Anybody enters the house, he would start a conversation in Japanese, and I had nothing to speak. It was like really crazy. Some 4 or 5 days later, a month later, I decided I have to do something about it. One day I shut him inside the room. He started knocking the door now. Oh my God, okay, so finally, I am a programmer. So I spoke to the guys in Japan, and they couldn't help me. So finally, I managed to download a piece of code. I changed the piece of code from Japanese to English, got hold of a few things. I do it freehand all the time. So I wrote the code, gave it back to those guys, wrote the API just to shut off this system, right? Today, it's a nice piece that's sitting in my showcase. I really don't know what to do with it, but I feel very accomplished at the end of it. At least I could do something to shut this robot, right? Very similar in digital. We start a lot of projects. At times, if we don't know where we are headed, it can be a caterpillar in a dirty shape. It can be a slow or a fast caterpillar without being a butterfly, right? So that's very important. I just want to talk a little bit about what we are selling today or what we are doing in our organizations even before I go to my content. That's not so important. I think what's important is to understand I am one of the customers, I am one of the consumers, I am one of the clients for several businesses, right? So this is a known fact to all of you. It will sound like a cliche, but I still want to refer to this. Amazon 20 years back just sold books and sold books without a store. 20, 30, I would say about 25 years back, because I used to buy those books when they were not shipping into India, just because they could give us that experience. We realized what the value of that experience was, right? Especially if you're a book reader, a prolific reader, you would really appreciate that. It's very hard to go to a bookstore, very hard to go through manual catalogs if you're a prolific reader, really understand the essence of what it is and buy a book, right, which you're so passionate about. Imagine the entire investment was on experience. Look at that company that never went to its subscribers, never went to its customers, but drew them towards them. I think that's very important. The important essence is about selling experience. I think Duncan spoke so beautifully. His entire Walt Disney never went to people and sold Walt Disney. People came to Walt Disney. People, and the children, all ages, went to Walt Disney. It's the same about Google. Google didn't do a great deal to kill, I think it was Alta Vista at that time. I remember when I was first switched to Google, I switched through Alta Vista. I was searching something and Google came up, and that's how I found out there was Google, and I started using Google. So Alta Vista got killed eventually because they didn't innovate too much, too much of themselves. But Google again, it's not about how many products, it's not, they always create what's not there. They always, adventure is on what's not there. And two things it produces. One, people talk of disruption and disruption. I always say disruption should be great to society, right? Disruption at large, disruption for experience, disruption for scale, and disruption that's affordable. I think that is what has made a difference to this country. Why is it all pertinent to all of us to listen and, and just learn from this? I think we should rebrand this conference. We shouldn't call it INFOCOM conference, maybe we should call it information and communication detoxification or something like that. Maybe that will be a better word, to use to draw people's attention. But I think what's most enterprising and important for us to learn is the adoption of IT. Few years back, I remember people saying 1%, 2%, 3%. Our own consumption of IT is very low, but today IT is in form of this phone. So our consumption is almost 50%, 5 folds. So I think we have enough and more to innovate in the digital world, right, in the digitization. So I'm going to go through my slides really quickly. Each of these slides, only the takeaways. I'm not going to be talking a lot. So two things. I think I laid my foundation by saying you sell experience, you don't sell product or solution. So I think experience is a keyword. Second, you sell for scale so that you can scale, and you really don't sell to a target audience. I think we should stop looking at that, right? So these are the two things why a transformation. What is the industry going through? This is an IDC report. I don't have to just to keep the pace on. A lot of things, right from usage-based, from robotics to blockchain to change of user experience. I think these are the drivers for the industry. I want to really get into the crux, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is the most important. People, the CIOs out here, when I interact with them, I have a very hard task every time telling them don't call it CapEx. You have to call it capital. It's the capital that you invest for, and now a return on capital is more important in experience, measure it in experience, rather than saying CapEx. I'm sure Alok will agree with me because we have the same battle every time, right? It's CapEx, OpEx. No, they're just capital in some form or the other, right? Now again, adoption of digital is going to be in various phases, at least as far as this country is concerned. So the way you're going to pace your business doing that innovation will have to be with respect to what others do. Robots, again, automation and robot is absolutely imminent and inevitable. It is going to dominate our lives, and it's important to see how much of it you can embrace and which best form, in what best form, right? Now, he talked about the tsunami, data tsunami, but just look at this storm. You have a bunch of trends that you really have to respect as far as your clientele is concerned. You have to leverage your digital in terms of channel to deliver it, and you have a whole bunch of technologies which you have to really adopt as a mesh. And when people say that you have to embark on this journey, let me tell you, I actually do these for my customers, like day in and day out, trying to solve this problem. It is not so simple. Our legacy is prevences, VUCA prevences. Probably we don't have enough data points to prove how important it is because our vision is not really aligned to it. So it's extremely important redefining of vision, looking at practical approach, making sure, embarking on that journey which makes a big difference to you. My last slide is the biggest takeaway in terms of what, I think one should be looking at, right? What are the implications? I'm sure there's going to be employee pushback. Yes, it is. And let me tell you, half the time employee pushback is construed as an inhibition from employee. Not really. It is a lack of skill. We don't time skill too well in our lives. We don't. As a country, I can't agree more with Duncan. The whole education system really needs reforms in this country. I really don't know why we still test memory, why do we still test archaic principles which actually are not required. It's important to look at how at work it means skills. How do you really skill? How do you skill on time, right? So that's one of the takeaways. The entire control should be with customer and not with you. When you talk of user experience, every control was with the customer. You look at Amazon, you look at Google, the control is with customer, control is not with Google, control is not with Amazon. I think that's what we enjoyed, right? So it's an important aspect of this whole digital change. Lead with a vision and leadership. I will just one takeaway from this slide. These are a bunch of slides which give you a whole lot of, it uses the real estate. Forget it. I think what's important from our perspective is to look at bottom-up innovation. I don't understand why in every company I meet in India, people say innovation comes from the top. Actually, no, it should be inclusive innovation and innovation bottom-up, right? Which is the most important thing. Then your inclusivity will bring your partners, your channels, your clients, your stakeholders, employees, your visionaries all together to blend into the path that is really easy to traverse, which is one of the most important things. Some of the processes, this I'm going to skip, just paucity of time. I have 9 minutes, so I'm going to really talk about what really makes a big difference to you. The benefits are well defined by everybody. I think the benefit gives the experience, benefits gives your customer to stay and grow with you. It helps the company to go through that innovation and make sure that they can survive in the most, the VUCA world. It also makes, business easy, cost of business becomes better. And the most important thing is a client becomes your friend. They almost buy from you, by default, right? They don't have to really experiment. I want to talk about what we are doing. It's important. Unless I think the conviction comes only if we have practiced some part of it. Globally, there is a transformation that NTT is taking. We are part of the top 50 companies in the world, and we want to be there. We just don't want to vanish when that top 50 gets recalled in next 5 or 10 years. And that's the reason why NTT has actually embarked on a journey globally to make sure that they are really doing the right things at the right time. And we have done a few things. It's not like I'm going to share the next 20-year history with you. What is it that's really troubling us today, right? What problems we have to solve? We don't want to solve all the problems. We want to solve problems which really need solution. Like disruption in the data center market. You have seen data center, we're known for data center, right? The disruptions in data center market is enormous. We have people like, Digital Reality, Equinix, small players, race to bottom, definitions of tiers, just everything that is disrupting this market, and it's important to survive there. It's a very capital intensive business. It's a business once you get in, you can't get out very easily, right? Customer needs a lot of attention, and a lot of convincing, a lot of automation. Retention itself is a big challenge. Legal risks are very, very big in this business. Not many people realize it, but it's really because we become custodians of your asset, and therefore our legal risk multiplies in terms of what we carry, right? One thing that we did very clearly to just divest in a lot of things that we do mundane, divesting. Important word, right? You will have to go back and see what do you do which is not core to you, which you need to really divest in. You need to divest, and you have to now invest into things like which makes a big difference to life, a big leap into future. Like for example, AI and ML is an example, right? AI and ML can make a big difference in terms of how you interact with your customer. Difficult to adopt, but the change that can have a manifold effect on your whole economy. So we started doing some of those stuff. Next, what we did was to change our definition of how we work. We digitized everything, our organization, customer, process, product, every bit of digitization that we could bring in these 4 pillars. There are 50 pillars in an organization, but these 4 pillars actually make a difference to our customer. So we ensured that each of these pillars embrace digitization globally. So it will be a global initiative, not in India, it's just globally, right? So that was the most important next thing that we did. So in terms of customer, it was all UX and experience. In terms of process, it was all automation. In terms of organization, it was about partner ecosystem, skill development, virtual workforce, a whole lot of stuff. In product, we ensure that every product is a digitized product. Only that gets launched and nothing else, right? First thing that we did was to hand over control to our customer. Most of the people in this kind of an industry do not do that, because you just don't want to do that. This is like your asset. It's like having a custodian of a locker where the bank keeps one of the keys, right? We don't want to do that. We give complete control to our customer, right? The control moves from us to customer. So that's the first thing that we did. Second, we wanted to embrace what customers are embracing. All customers here are embracing multi-cloud. So we're not going to customer and saying, buy this over that. We're just saying what is just right for them to buy for that situation and in terms of economics, and we provide a platform to integrate it very easily. So it's ease of use of any of these flavors of cloud, whether it is AWS, Azure, Google, Netmagic, Simply Cloud, or colocation, hybrid, just about anything. This is a true hybrid story. A hybrid story which means you will support any flavor of anything that really supports that environment, right? So you don't have to be compelled to look at these things. We added a lot of intelligence so you yourself can see what kind of trouble tickets, how does trouble ticket works versus a change management, what should you log and what kind of SLAs should you really command for, what should you incorporate into your legal so you get the best to monitor, which is important. It comes from the insights and it comes from several data points that run within our data center, which normally is never given control to customer. We wanted to become a truly transparent service provider so that it's easy for customers to assess what they really need, right? So that was the other. A lot of analytics platforms. So not every customer can afford to build his own analytics on top of the data that we provide. So we gave them self-service tools to build their own analytics on top of what we generate as data for them. I'll give you an example. This is a better example on analytics, right? We built an intelligent data center. Instead of building data centers is just like a brick and a power put together. No, that's not what we call data center. I was in the other room, somebody said, oh, you're a data center player, you're like a real estate player. Not really. If that is what we mean, then we don't want to be in this business, because any real estate player can become a data center player. That's not what it is. We define ourselves as data center, intelligent data center, hybrid and infrastructure company, right? Which means you think of infrastructure, you think of service, you should be thinking of entity, right? Communication infrastructure should mean entity. So the most important thing was to put an intelligent data center in place. What does an intelligent data center mean? Everything that it detects, right from security to compliance to power systems to availability, all are integrated on a single framework so that you are not dependent on human. So you're ensuring that every switching system which needs to do its test to carry out a failover and disaster is all completely automated. You give great confidence to your customer. Let me tell you, our data centers are not tier 4. Our data centers are tier 3 only, because as a country we are not tier 4. I don't believe you need a tier 4. You really don't need. What you need is a tier 4 automation, and that's what we have focused on. As a typical Japanese company, they don't really rely only on infrastructure. They don't rely on what you can put together as a system, but they build a lot of automation on top to ensure that the failure never impacts you. And let me proudly tell you, in 18 years of operations, we have not had a single day of downtime to our customer, even though the network service providers have had downtime because of, POPs going down, or, maybe the rains or floods or whatever, right? So no downtime whatsoever. And that has improved better and better. Today, we almost underwrite 100% availability on our papers. Very rarely will people do when they have tier 3 data center. You need to have conviction on your automation that you do, right from power to security, a 7-layer of security, and say it's absolutely unbreakable, right? So that's the most important thing. We also focus a lot on our future technologies, which help customer embrace these things easily, right? So just for example, it could be HCI from Dell in terms of VxRail, or it can be Nutanix, or whatever it is, and PaaS and other things, right? The benefits are known, but I have 16 seconds, and this is the biggest VUCA moment for me, so I'm going to really quickly talk on this. What is it that really matters to you? These are the 4 things. Divest in regular, mundane, non-core, especially infrastructure, network. These are not things that any company should do, right? Develop. Spend money on development. Make sure PaaS, microservice, container enabled. Next generation is what agility comes from here. Invest. You need to invest in AI. You need to invest in making sure ML. You need to invest in data insights, and that's what Duncan talked about throughout his presentation. Collaborate. The more the collaboration you accomplish within and with your ecosystem, it's going to make a big difference to you, right? Your digital journey is based on these 4 things, which finally translates into data points on what really you want to do as a project. So it's about divesting, developing with the right platform, investing in right technologies, and collaborating with the ecosystem. I had exactly 16 minutes, and thank you very much. I'm sorry for making this so short and brief. I'm there for 2 days. Wish you a great conference.